This is my Steam machine. Yes, it's using last-gen hardware, but you could build this one for just over $500. A true gaming and computing experience from your couch. But at what cost? SteamOS was a Debian Linux distro made by Valve to show off back in 2013. They were working with hardware vendors to create Steam boxes or Steam machines. Fast forward not too much and they kinda died. You're still able to download and install it for yourself, but it's not been updated in several years, and I'm sure you've heard about the Steam Deck. This is what Valve was really working towards. I don't know if they knew it at the time, but this is where their SteamOS and Steam boxes were leading us. I have not touched a Steam Deck, but I know they're very cool, and a great value for a handheld gaming computer. The Steam Deck runs an Arch-based Linux, a new and improved version of SteamOS dubbed SteamOS 3. And it's more different than just having Steam Big Picture run on boot. The new SteamOS 3 isn't available to download from Valve just yet, but you can try it out with a community-made project called HoloISO, which is what I'm using. This video by Tech Hut helped me install it, and this guide helped me add a hard drive to mount on startup, and with user permissions to allow for seamless external drive Steam games. And while this is an annoying feature of Linux in general, you actually don't want every drive to be automatically mounted by user with permissions like Windows does. Yes, it's more convenient, but it's a major security flaw. Now, since we're on Linux, it's not going to have the same game and application support as Windows. Games for the longest time have been notoriously worse in Linux in terms of performance and out-of-the-box support. But thanks to Valve, they created a compatibility layer called Proton, which allows you to play your Windows-only games on Linux, and it's great. Aside from games that require heavy anti-cheats or third-party launchers, and the abundance of combinations of users' hardware causing issues. ProtonDB is a good way to see if your favorite games will work on Linux or Steam Deck, but your mileage may vary. Now this goes for all Linux, and thanks to Proton, I've moved my main computer gaming rig to Linux, and I love it. I hardly go back to Windows except for the edge cases where the game I want to play just doesn't work, or there's a certain software that I'm used to and it just works, okay? And I've never used Wine, funny enough. For HoloISO, the graphics card you will use matters. Out of the box, there's support for modern Radeon graphics. If you've got an Nvidia card, you're on your own. Speaking of the hardware, this is what I'm using. It's a bit older, but you can get this and similar hardware for around $500 used, or you can get similar modern hardware new for around $700. Now, the Steam Deck starts at $400 and comes with a nice display and is more portable and power efficient, but this hardware I already have, and graphically it's more powerful even if it's a bit less compatible. By default, this grub menu pops up that takes a few seconds to go to the default Neptune kernel. Some systems may have issues with Wi-Fi showing up, in which case the Holo kernel may be better for you. Once you find what works for you, you can get and use a grub editor to edit the options or remove the weight altogether. Or, unless I could, if I were able to install anything. This appears to be a bug with HoloISO. SteamOS has a constant update that doesn't work, but this all may be fixed eventually. But that's okay for now, because 1, it will get fixed eventually, and 2, I like the experience. I've set it up in my bed, and before I go night-night, I can pick up on a Skyrim save from 2016, or keep up with a Fallout Shelter I made some years ago, and play some old classics. Bully, for example, a game I last played in 2009, contains some hitching, but it never crashed unlike when I tried to play this on Windows some time ago. And I haven't had any crashing. This is surprisingly stable, minus some temperature issues that were my bad. One of the fans wasn't spinning, so I took off the side panel for some of these tests. Actually, there was a game that didn't work initially, LEGO Lord of the Rings, but that's said to not be compatible anyway. But I did resolve this for whatever reason when I set my in-game resolution to 1080p, instead of the Steam Deck's default 720p. As far as I know, you have to set this up for every game you play. Oh well, it's just first time setup stuff. I'm using the Steam controller for all of my gaming on this machine, but you can use a mouse and keyboard if you please. I actually really enjoy the Steam controllers. Trackpads are nice and haptic, but sensitivity layouts can be hit or miss per game. Button mapping can be changed mid-game per game, with community mapping for quick, convenient layouts. To access this overlay, you have to press the center menu button plus A, and it'll show some neat settings. games tend to have an FPS cap by default, and even if you turn off VSync in-game, you'll still have to cap or uncap this in the Steam menus as well. Bully, for another example, was incredibly stuttery before I capped the frame rate to 30 FPS. Yay, console ports. I went through my library of games. I don't have a lot of newer or heavy stuff, but everything I did test did great. At worst, medium settings at 1080p. The performance was actually really good. Like, I didn't have any major problems or headaches like I've been accustomed to with Linux. Once some of the bugs are fixed, and I can update the system, I would consider moving to this as my main OS. Anyway, do you have Steam Deck? Have you tried SteamOS? Would you consider having a Steam machine of your own? Let me know in the comments below, but for now, let me enjoy my games. Some privacy, please.